Welcome to Challenges to Triumphs. I'm Kerry Proudman, also known as Practical Awareness for All. Each month I sit down with someone who's faced real life challenges and found a way to rise through them. These are honest, powerful stories from people I know and admire shared with you as a reminder that if they can do it, you can too. I am so glad you're here. Let's meet this month's guest. I'd like to say a big thank you to my friend Anna, who's my very first guest on this podcast. So thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your story?
I would. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Anna, if anyone I've not had the pleasure of meeting, also known as Afterglow Yoga. And yeah, thank you very much. I'm excited to delve in and see what we're going to talk about.
So can you tell us then a little bit about your challenges that you've faced in your life and how you've turned them into triumphs? So what was it about the challenges that you've had maybe growing up or when you were a little bit younger? And yeah, what were your biggest challenges? Talk us through them.
Oh, what a question. So I suppose that the biggest challenge to kind of look back, and it's so hard to do that, isn't it? Because you're always looking forward, but to look back and look at the challenges almost feels like I'm looking at a different person. But all through my childhood and teens, and definitely my 20s and 30s, my biggest challenge was without a doubt anxiety, depression, and chronic pain. So a physical pain in my body, really poor health, just chronically, put like with low vibrancy and constantly battling something, which quite often when I had to go to like the doctors or try and get advice, it wouldn't actually be pinpointed to something. And obviously with that came low moods, depression, and just a general challenge of the sense of like life's not meant to feel like this. Life just felt really, really challenging, but I kind of knew it wasn't meant to feel like that. And it kind of ranged with a few different things physically with challenges. I had chronic pain in my throat for majority of my teens and 20s. Always really poorly, really went down, fatigue, depression, anxiety, just really an inability to manage my emotions. So they were just always really heavy and really loud. And then in my mid 30s, that pain in the throat was resolved when I found a patch on my esophagus, and that was taken off during a medical trial, and that helped relieve that pain. And then pretty much soon after that, I had started with a pain in my right hip and all on the right side of my body, just a constant pain, so like a physical pain. And then the biggest challenge I would say is for me is I got to a point where I didn't understand what was physical, what was emotional, what was spiritual, and it just kind of all merged into one, and just felt like a shell of what felt like life would be, and what I knew I could potentially be without that physical challenge and the emotional challenge and the mental challenge, really.
So, I mean, that was hard then, isn't it, to live with that amount of pain for all of that time? And then, to get a little bit of hope when, like, you thought, because, like, if you've been going to the doctors and you think that the doctors have got the answers, don't we? And, often they
Hmm.
do. I know they do, but then when
Yeah.
you got that part of your throat kind of almost healed, then did you think that everything was going to be bright and rosy?
Yeah, I definitely did. So the throat was actually a medical trial. So when I look back now, I wasn't necessarily practicing spirituality back then, but it happened from a fluke of alignment. I was just going to doctors and doctors every week, hospital appointments, and I got referred to a Greek doctor. I always remember him. And at the very end of the appointment, he just said, "Would you do a medical trial?" And I said, "I'd literally try anything." It was like I'd swallowed razor blades, but every single day for years. And it literally nearly drove me insane because it was just so painful. So I said, "I'll try anything." And then I went on the medical trial, and that's when the doctor found this patch, which is very, very rare. So I think there was definitely a little bit of hope. But I think the loudest thing for me, and people with chronic pain probably relate to this, I actually just wanted there to be something because
Yeah.
I'd been in that much pain for that many years. I actually started to think like, am I making this up in my head? Am I imagining
Yeah.
this? Because the doctors are telling me there's nothing going on. I'm feeling in pain. I'm not imagining the pain. So then
Yeah.
the big thing when the patch was there, it was kind of like, oh, thank God, like someone's actually found what it is. Because all I wanted to know was, this is what's wrong with you. This is what you can do. Like, I didn't want someone to fix me. I was happy to fix it myself, but I wanted to know what it was that I was doing. So when I found and got the patch off, there was definitely that relief. And then now looking back, I understand that there was such a big connection with the throat, with my mental health, with my emotional regulation, and then that has obviously manifested and just came out in a different way in the chronic pain with my hip. So the sad thing is, and again, people with chronic pain who listen to this may relate to this. You get so used to being in pain, it just becomes your normal, which is the saddest thing about it. And that's why I openly talk about this now, because it's not normal and it doesn't have to be your normal. So I definitely had a little bit of hope, and I think that hope kind of pushed me on when the pain in my hip came, and I realised, okay, there's another challenge here. Let's try and find out what this is so that I can find that healing. Because all the time I was challenged, there was a little thing inside me that was like, surely this isn't normal. Surely, like, you can heal and you can feel better from pain. Um, yeah. So yeah.
Oh, I mean, for to go to the doctors and look for the answers all in the doctor all the time, and then just keep getting nowhere. Do you think that's like one of the hardest parts of having something that there's no cure for really? So like a lot of people who've got like say what's the one, that fibromyalgia.
Fibromyalgia.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's like chronic pain, isn't it? Where but the doctors literally can do nothing for you, can they?
Yeah. It's definitely one of the hardest things, but I think the word that come to mind when you asked that question was, it's the cruelest thing.
Yeah,
And when I look back now, I give myself so much sympathy, because I was literally going to doctors to ask them for the answers. And I'm sure we're talking in a moment about like the journey after that. But I know now, looking back, I was never going to get the answer from them. So
yeah,
it was a waste of my time, and it was a waste of their time as well. And it was cruel because I just didn't know where to ask for the answers. So you go to the doctors because that's what you trust
yeah,
the doctors are going to help you. The doctors do amazing things in many circumstances, but when it comes to chronic conditions, they're just not equipped. And I think when you're going to find like what it is that's wrong with you, sometimes you want a diagnosis, because then at least you can know, okay, that's what it is, this is what I'm going to try. And for years of trying scans, injections, every medication under the sun, think going to that was the cruelest part, because actually after all of that, that didn't give me any relief. It didn't give me any clarity. It probably made me even more upset, because I was going to doctors who didn't always have the patience or the understanding to deal with someone in chronic pain, because they were under pressure themselves, and the system just isn't built to deal with people in the scenario that I was in, which I now understand, and I want to help people who still stuck in that loop of maybe
yeah,
searching for the answers with the doctors, rightly so, because that's what we're told to do. But when it's cruel, because you're not going to find the
yeah,
answers. You may find some clarity on what it is, but they're not equipped to help you in the way that you can actually receive that deep healing.
yeah. And I think even if you did find the answer with the doctor, so for example, they were able to help you with like your esophagus, then you have to complement it with other things as well, don't you?
Um,
People think that, like my eldest son is going through something quite similar. He's had really like proper stomach issues, and all he wants is a diagnosis, because once he gets this diagnosis, he feels like he's going to be able to deal with it better. But he's
yeah,
just in that loop of going round and round, like that
yeah,
medication loop of, well, try this, try that, and then all your hopes on this medication. Oh, is this going to work? And then when it doesn't, you're back to square one, and it's a hard thing to keep coming bouncing back from time and time again. And the thing is, you know, complementing it with really, really, good stuff that's good for everybody, whether you've got chronic pain or not,
yeah,
is
hmm,
always going to help, regardless if you've got to be on medication for the rest of your life. It's like
yeah,
we're looking after our whole self, aren't we? And we've got to do it from like many, many different angles. So then for
100%.
you
And
then, what was the point then where you can, so you kept talking about this like little inner voice, like this little, something kept saying to you, well, this can't be it. There's gotta be something else. This can't be normal. I can't be expected to live with this all of my life. So there was something pecking at you inside, wasn't there, for a very, very long time. And you're like, so how old were you before you actually acted upon that voice?
Um, think if I look back, I was always acting on the voice. I just wasn't acting on it in an empowering way.
Yeah,
I, so, for instance, and the more kind of I work with people or I observe people in chronic pain or chronic conditions, it doesn't have to be a pain. It can just be anything which is chronically robbing your vibrancy. That's a chronic condition because it's robbing your potential. And I think when you have a condition and we get diagnosed with something or we don't get diagnosed with something, it can become a very self-fulfilling prophecy, and we can put limits on our life thinking, well, I can't do that because of XYZ. So I think for the mere fact that I was going to the doctors and I was trying diets, I was trying hypnosis, I was trying anything that anyone was suggesting, that was my little light, I think. But
yeah,
what I was missing was the spiritual connection. What I was missing was the understanding of how the mind, the body, and the soul work together.
yeah,
So, like you said then, like you can take medication, but if you're not in the place to receive that healing, to allow the medication to do the work, to complement it with diet, nutrition, moving the body, resting the body with sleep, then it's like you're playing a game, but you've only got like one part of the game. You haven't got the dice, or you haven't got the statue. Like you're not doing the full thing. You're only doing a little part of it. And I think it was really when I tried, and maybe my journey was that I had to try each thing and exhaust it within the NHS, exhaust it within medications, with everything else. And then when I eventually got to the point, it was probably in mid to late 30s. So it had been like well over a decade of trying. When I think I got to the point where I had to stop going to the doctors and the hospital and taking the medication because I think I just had like a bit of awareness maybe, or a bit of like a wake up moment of like, this is making my suffering worse. It's actually making the tension within me and whatever condition I've got worse by searching for something, and it's robbing me of time when I could just be enjoying
yeah,
life and trusting the body. And I'd say that was in my late mid to late 30s, probably around the time of the lockdown of the pandemic,
yeah,
which did so much to wake so many people up. And it
yeah.
was definitely a big change in the way that I handle my health, and the way that I handled challenges completely changed in lockdown, completely changed.
So yeah, lockdown hit and we all got given like all of this time that we probably hadn't had. And so what was it for you then that you stepped on on a different path almost, didn't you? You come off your medication,
Yeah,
you thought this is no good, this is
yeah,
not working, I'm gonna do something totally different. So you tried lots and
yeah,
lots of things and maybe they all helped a
yeah,
little tiny bit, maybe. Or they certainly were opening your eyes more and more, weren't they? That there was other
yeah.
possibilities out there. So what was it then, or who was it that kind of took you on maybe a path of, well, spirituality, but also like that path of self-discovery of, well, who am I other than,
How can I
Anna,
feel?
or who am I other than someone who's got chronic pain every single day?
Yeah,
What was it that, because one step always takes us, as you start walking the path,
yeah.
you don't need to see what's coming. Something
No,
just comes, doesn't it? So what was
yeah.
it then for you?
There was definitely a few things like you said, and I think that the paradox of like the double-edged sword, if you like, of chronic pain is when you take an action, you want it there and then. So I think at the start I was trying things, and because I was so low in mood and I was low in hope and faith, it was just so low that I was trying something for a week and going, yeah, it doesn't work because I
Yeah,
wasn't getting the immediate. So I think I've kind of dabbled in a few things. Yoga had always been a constant, so I'd always done yoga since I was in my 20s. But at the style of yoga definitely changed into more of a spiritual, meditative stillness yoga. And then to look, actually thinking about now, and I haven't thought about this for a while until we've had this conversation now, but I think one of the biggest turning points for me was a lady called Nicole Sachs who does a podcast. I used to live in London at the time when this kind of happened, and I was at the peak, and I was at the point where like life just didn't feel worth living because the pain was that bad. And every time I kind of sat still or was with the pain, especially as lockdown hit, it become really loud of how like there was something really not right within my body, and there was something my body was needing that it just wasn't, I wasn't giving it or wasn't being able to receive. And I remember literally searching in Spotify, just stop chronic pain. And that was it. Because I was just like, I was so angry. I was like, just stop. And I found this podcast called How to Stop Chronic Pain, I think it's called, by Nicole Sachs. and I listened to that, and it was I think it was the first time when someone had worded something in a way that I could receive it, to actually start to think, is this pain something which is rooted in the subconscious? So one of my big things, which I am really passionate about, is to try to avoid people using the terms like, is it in the head or it's all in your mind? Because when you're in chronic pain, you might as well just slap them across the face and insult them, because they're experiencing that pain. And if you're suggesting that it's in the mind, then you're suggesting you can cancel it with the mind. Now I understand you can, because the mind is so powerful. But that podcast really planted the seed, because she worded it so compassionately, as to, if the subconscious is that powerful, that it can hold trauma, it can hold all the stuff that we don't want to feel, then it comes out in pain. And actually, the pain is like a child tugging on your sleeve. And then that really started my progression into therapy, counseling, and really looking at the kind of like psychosomatic, subconscious, conscious connection. And then I think that was what led me then into trying the things like cold water, yin yoga, more of the softer yoga, somatic, getting out in nature more, actually using the tools which were actually helping me connect to the subconscious and bring it into the consciousness, so that the body could tell me what it really needed from the pain. And that was all when I was in London on my own. Didn't really have a community around me because it was lockdown, and I lived on my own, so it wasn't like there was people around me. So I had to kind of go and search for it. And then I made the decision to come back to Liverpool, and then that's when I started to actually be around people physically in groups who were kind of the same mindset or wavelength. And
Yeah.
that, I think, was the pivotal point as well, when I was actually around people who were talking the same way that she was talking on the podcast. And I
Yeah.
was like, so this is just a lifestyle. This isn't just like, I thought, when you're in that dark place, you think it's only you that's going through it, and no one else can understand. You can be a bit sassy about it, be like, no one understands the pain. When actually, when you go in a circle, or you go in a community and you hear people speaking, the ego is all of a sudden realizes, wow, I would never have thought they'd like be struggling like that. And that's when all of the work started to come together, because I could actually be around people doing the work every day, not just as a tick box to get rid of pain, but just to manage life's challenges, because we've all got them, whether it's pain or not. Everyone's got challenges.
Yeah. And I think once you start like understanding that there's no magic wand, that just you can just like that short-term gratification, like I'm gonna take this and in 2 or 3 days I'm gonna feel great. And I think that's like something that we're sold now, aren't we? Especially maybe in bigger cities like Liverpool. And I imagine that most big cities, maybe smaller ones as well, are the same. But Liverpool can be sold like a new thing comes
Yeah,
out
children
and everyone
development.
just jumps on it. And I think when
Yeah,
you've been on this journey for a very long time, just a wellness journey in general, like it takes quite a lot of effort to stay well in your
it
mind,
does.
your body
It
and your
does.
soul, even without chronic pain. If you want to stay
Yeah,
in high
yeah,
frequency and if you want to become that magnet to attract good people, good things, good experiences, then yeah, it is about like, connecting with like-minded people, being part of
yeah,
communities, maybe where you don't feel isolated in how you want to live your life and how you think and the things that you
yeah,
enjoy. So that makes a massive difference, doesn't it?
yeah,
You said
yeah.
something about well, when I started doing things, all of these little things, you said cold water and you went into yin yoga and then a few other bits and bobs, it was like, no, this is not something I can do for a month and then stop. This is
Yeah.
like a lifestyle choice now.
I think it becomes the opposite of what you just said as well. I can do it for a month and stop. Why would I?
I know.
Why would I do things for a month and then stop doing them? And
Yeah.
obviously, it takes time to realize that, because I mean, what you said about Liverpool is spot on. But I met a lot of people from all over the world when I away and did my training, and I've had this conversation with them and said something about Liverpool, where like there's always a trend, there's always a new thing, and they were doing it. And I've got a really good friend in America who is just so wise, and she said, "It's like, Anna, it's not just Liverpool. Like it's the whole world.
Yeah.
The whole world is dopamine hit trains. So we're
Yes.
trained to know, like, have you seen that thing? It's going to make you feel amazing. Oh, that's so good. Even if
Yeah.
the words aren't said that this is the thing that's going to make you feel good, it's the colours, it's the lyrics, it's the reels, it's the way that we see things in slow-mo. All of this is very clever to make us constantly chase something, when
Yeah.
actually when you do this journey, the biggest part of it, and I've never thought about it like you said, but even if you've not got chronic pain, it's a commitment and a dedication to keep yourself at that high vibrancy. And just because you've got pain doesn't mean it's any more challenging than someone who's got like a really anxious mind, or someone who's got maybe money worries, or someone who can't put weight on, someone who can't lose weight. Like
Yeah.
anything that's robbing you of that vibrancy is just an invitation, I think, to notice the lifestyle that you lead, and waking you up to thinking, no, I set my energy, not that new trend.
Yeah.
Like, try it, and if it works, but otherwise you'll just chase and chase, and that actually makes the distance from you and your soul and yourself just bigger and bigger, rather than just doing the little bits. And obviously listening to the body. Cold water was a massive, massive thing for me. It still is. And I got into it from Wim Hof, of course, which I think majority of people did, the man and the legend. And what I think is amazing about Wim Hof is his personality and charisma got us in that water.
Yeah.
100%. The way that he speaks, the way that he embodies it, I want to be like him. So for
Yeah.
me, Wim Hof's the fad. Like, I'll follow a fad like that because
Oh
he's
yeah, me
embodying
too.
what I'll be. Like, I support fads like that because he's not saying do cold water now, but then next week do something else. He's saying do it, and if it makes you feel good, do it again. Do it again.
Yeah.
And then when I started doing it down in London, when I was on my own, and actually felt, because, and I say this all the time when I'm on the mat teaching people, you've got to feel the afterglow of something, otherwise why are you doing it? Like, you're just doing it as a tick box. Whereas things
Yeah.
like the cold water, yoga nidra, amazing,
Yeah.
yin yoga, obviously kundalini yoga, which I'm biased about, but is my personal love, mantra meditation, all of these things which are, you can't deny the feeling.
No.
They're better than any high of a or relief of a drug that ever give me, because it's natural. So the natural thing, my brain and my dopamine hit goes, you can have this again, but it's
Yeah.
free. You can just
Yeah.
breathe, you can just get in some cold water.
Yeah. So you started doing all of them things and then you decided to come back up to Liverpool. So at that point, could you like feel your mood lifting? Were you starting to feel a lot lighter in yourself?
I think I was. I remember a really good, very wise friend saying to me once, we were saying, like, how are you? How are you today? Are you feeling okay? And she said, physically I'm fine, yeah. She, but spiritually and emotionally, like, I'm not great. And it blew my mind because I was like, what do you mean? Like, there's three different versions of you. Because I just put myself together as this, like, well, I am one thing. And then that set off emotion when I come back to Liverpool, of separating them both and saying, okay, I'm in chronic pain. For me, it's the right hip, the coccyx. I feel like I'm sitting on a spike, and then it shoots all the way up my right side of the body constantly, every second of the day. Physically, I can be in that pain. But for the first time, after doing these modalities and being around these like-minded people, I started to separate them and think, what if I could be in pain, but I could lift my mood, and I could lift my spiritual connection? My soul could be okay, but my body may be in pain. Maybe that's the little headspace that I need to then actually say to the body, what is it, body, that you need? And what is this pain, and what can help it? So I definitely got a lift in the mood. I definitely got a lift in the connection. Connection is the best medicine.
Mm.
But I think when I come back to Liverpool, I was just about to enter probably one of the darkest. I thought I'd entered the darkest times, but then I think, and people say it all the time, and it's so much easier to say than to hear yourself, but it's always darkest before the dawn. In like Florence and Machine lyric, it's always darkest just before the light really comes. So when I come back to Liverpool, I still had about 18 months where I was okay, but I was preparing to hit my darkest point before the light actually would come again, which wasn't until 2022. So I definitely felt a lift, but there was, what I understand now, I needed to dip again, mood, physically. There was another lockdown actually that happened over Christmas, and I was in my flat. I'd already prepared to go to travel to to learn to teach Kundalini. But because of lockdown, I was stuck in the flat on my own, with surrounded by boxes. I had my ticket ready to fly, like, just after Christmas. And it was ironic because I was literally about to leave to Mexico on a one-way ticket, and I I can still vividly remember the conflict. I was crawling in my own skin. I couldn't sit in that flat. I just needed to get on that plane in that second. It was too hard to sit at Christmas on my own with the boxes around me, and my mind just couldn't get to the point of, but you're nearly going to go. Like, you're making a new start. You're gonna heal this pain. You're gonna find the light that you're looking for. And so I think that for me was the little bit of a lift when I come back, and then in that lockdown again in 2021 at Christmas. I think it was like Christmas Eve. It was like, yay, it's Christmas. And then Christmas Eve lunch, it was like, no, it's not. And we all got locked down again. I think that was me really getting pushed into the darkness, what I say, so that I could sit with the darkness, get a torch, shine a light on it, and then Mexico happened. And then
But
then
then
the light,
you'd already decided to go to Mexico, hadn't you? So you give up your job, hadn't
yes.
you? So you come back to Liverpool, but you were working in
Yes.
Liverpool, weren't you?
So I was working remotely, so I was working online,
Yeah.
and then I was traveling down to London once a month for a week.
Ah,
So
okay.
I was going down to do a job which I loved. I used to work in child protection and I absolutely loved the job, but I wasn't physically capable to do the traveling, to sit in an office, because obviously with pain, sitting down sounds simple, but like even now I've got my right leg up because it's too
Yeah.
much pressure on the right side. So it was torture because it was that split thing of like, no, I really like the job, dead rewarding. So I was going to London to do that, and then I was working from home when I come back, but sitting at a computer.
Yeah.
And there was just this like that little voice, that little pull was like, there's something you need to do here to actually take yourself out from Liverpool. Yeah, so I asked my boss for a sabbatical, had the most amazing, understanding boss who helped me make sure that that was possible and work. And then yeah, took 12 months off initially, and then never went back.
No. So you went to Mexico to do to be trained in Kundalini.
Yes,
That
yeah.
was the
Well,
main.
I was booked on to Mexico on a one-way ticket. And then I'd never done Kundalini before. I'd done Hatha yoga, Yin yoga, Vinyasa yoga. And my good friend who I did training with had contacted me and said, like, she could see on my stories and my messages that I was really struggling. She said, I can see you really struggling. She said, try this Kundalini. Didn't even know what it was. I was like, never heard of it in my life. I did one class online. I'd already booked the ticket to Mexico because it was the only country I could travel to because I didn't get the vaccination, so I couldn't go to a lot of the countries that were open for travel. But Mexico, you could travel to. So I was like, right, Mexico, that's where I'm meant to be. I was like kind of trusting that was aligned. And then when I did the one class online with Yamuk, the teacher who I trained with, I only did, I think, a 60-minute or 75-minute. No, it was a 90-minute call, but I think we did a practice for like 60 minutes, 70 minutes. And I swear to God, Kerry, I can still remember the feeling at the time. I felt like my heart had just popped open with like ecstasy. I was
Wow.
just like, what have I just done on that call for in me flat in pain? But the feeling in the heart was like it was like rushed through my body. And then I looked at the teacher, and I was due to arrive in Mexico on, I think, the 4th of January, and she was starting a teacher training on the 31st of January. So it
Wow.
was just perfectly aligned. And then straight away just signed up and then, yeah, did the teacher training. Well, it was teacher training, but to be honest with you, Kerry, it was also like, okay, what's Kundalini? Because I'd only done one class. So it was like, I didn't know anything about it. It was a deep dive immersion, but it was obviously the way it was meant to be. And there wasn't really Kundalini classes in Liverpool back then. So
Mm.
I didn't have the chance to be exposed to it, to know what it was that I was going to.
So then you come back from Mexico after you were there about 3 or 4 months, weren't you? In the end.
Yeah, 3 months in the end.
And then so you came back and you were like, right, this is it. I'm gonna be a Kundalini teacher. Well, a yoga teacher, but incorporating Kundalini into,
Yeah,
your sessions.
yeah.
And yeah, I mean, how's that gone then so far?
Oh God, what a whirlwind! When I first come back, the deep dive into Kundalini training was 21 days, so it was fully in it every single morning, up at 5, well, up at 4:30 to start at 5. So it was powerful, and it was completely transformative. And it to go back to like the point I said earlier, when I've been going to the doctors all the time and asking for, can you help me? I've got this pain. I was like going with hope and excitement of like, oh, they're going to tell me. When I did the Kundalini training, there was like this really drop moment of like, this is what I've been looking for when I've been going to the doctors. Because in Kundalini, you're basically just getting a prescription. So if one of my students comes to me and says, I've just lost somebody, I'm really going through grief, I know a set for grief, so I can give them that. If they're coming to me and saying, I really want to bring a baby into my life, I'm trying to get pregnant, we can do a set for that. You can describe what it is that you're working with. So when I come back, I was like, everyone needs to know this. Everyone in the world needs to know this, especially with chronic pain, warrior people who are just suffering when they don't need to, because they can have this prescription and it can really help relieve the pain, if not heal it completely. But I kind of come back from Mexico and was like so full of life and so excited. And there was a hard transition because Kundalini is a really deeply spiritual practice, and it kind of breaks away this whole like trend thing and the conditioning, and you do what everyone else does, and you do that on a Saturday, you do that on a Sunday. It breaks all that away, and you live your life how works for you, and you kind of go with, again, not against the grain, but like what works for you, not necessarily with the collective, because the collective is so conditioned and they're not necessarily doing the truth, they're just doing what they think is what they should do. So when I come back, I was putting these classes on and I was only really getting like one person, two pairs people, maybe three, maybe four sometimes, but my spirit was so high, I just kept going and kept going and kept going. And then thankfully, slowly but surely, people will come into the class and feeling what I'd felt on that call, and they were like, Anna, what's just happened? Like, I feel relaxed, I feel tingly, I've saw colours, I visualized real big clarity, I've got a pain in my shoulder and it's just gone. Like, things are really starting to happen, mantra especially. And then bit by bit that just kind of grew, and the community started to grow because people started to feel the magic of the practice. And then eventually I started doing like more events face to face, online, which obviously is mainly down to your support and encouragement. I still remember our conversation, and you were like, "Why don't you do it online?" I was like, "Who's going to want to watch me online and teach yoga?" And you were like, "I do. I want to wake up in the morning and do it." And that's that supportive community when you're with people that can see your own blind spots. You saying that to me made me go, "Do you know, yeah, I'm going to do it online." And what are we on now? 2.5 years after going
Yeah.
online, it's been going for twice a week, every week. We get up, we show up, we get on the mat, so that's kind of where it is today. But in between, there's been, rough patches and then really big patches where like people are just really loving the practice. Um, Last year was probably the biggest one for that, with so many retreats, which kind of just snowballed into something that was I did not plan, but it was just kind of like we kept going to places and I'd been like, oh, I'd love to do a retreat here, put it on, and then it'd fill up. So we had loads of retreats last year where it took yogis and beautiful souls to Ibiza, Switzerland, Glastonbury, Coniston, and Thailand, which was this year in January. And that's all come from then months 2 years ago when I first got back from Mexico, where I had one person on the mat and I just kept saying to myself and the universe and God, source, spirit, whatever word you want to use, I just kept saying to something bigger, I'm in this for the good, I'm in this for the heart. Like, if I'm meant to be a teacher, I'm going to help this woman here because she's obviously needs it. She's come on her own, nobody else is here. But now, then I had to grow to a point of I'm still doing it from the heart, but if I'm meant to be a teacher, then make there a bit of an energy exchange so that I can start to do this and financially support myself, which is where I am now, trying to stay with the heart, but encourage myself to be more of a business, which is challenging. I'm not going to lie, it's the challenge, but I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
So Kundalini was a massive moment, wasn't it, in your life to go over to Mexico, learn the tools from that amazing teacher. And then when you
Yes.
came back and you felt like, as you say, you were full of light and you were full of passion and you knew that you had something in you that you could share with other people that was going to ignite light in them and ignite passion in them. And I think, yeah, the community grew and grew and grew because you turned up regardless if there was one person at the class,
Yeah.
regardless of whether you've even covered your costs, for that room that you'd hired, but you just kept
Yeah.
rocking up time and time again. And as I say, like the Afterglow community online is 2.5 years old, and there's a lot of people in that community who've been there from day one, haven't they? Like we
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
name them, we won't. But what do you think? Like, you know, I'm like the way I look at my own well-being journey is I choose like my top three, and Kundalini is definitely in my top three. You know, But the people that we've experienced Kundalini with through your online classes, through your face-to-faces, and if people are lucky enough to be able to invest money and go on one of your retreats, it's like the sprinkles on the cake, isn't it? It's like all of the
Yeah.
cherries. But it's the hard work that people put in every single day, you included, me included. You did something quite special by adapting online so it was accessible for everybody,
Yes.
which was so good for me and
Yeah.
everyone who's in the a part of Afterglow online. But you also like tried to reduce the classes time, because a big thing about Kundalini was, for your healing journey, for everyone who's experienced Kundalini with you, it's got to be consistent. It can't be,
Yes.
you're going to get the most benefits by turning up for 30 minutes every morning rather than 90 minutes once a week. So, because a lot of the feedback that you got from your yogis was, I want a sustainable practice that I can fit into my morning routine that's going to have
Yeah.
the maximum impact on my overall well-being. So that's kind of what you did with Afterglow, and you tweak it and you change it month by month to fit in with different themes and all of that. But I mean, the feedback you get from the people who do it consistently and have been with you for quite a long time is what do people say?
Well, it's amazing, and I'm probably not the best at getting feedback, and I do try more because it's great for me to know what's going on the other side of the mat, because obviously I can see it. For me, that the best feedback is watching them, because I can see people who are maybe people have been off sick in work, and then they're doing the practice regularly and they're back again. They're feeling like they're ready to go back into the world of work again. People whose relationships are struggling, and they've shared confidential with me that they're really struggling to connect with the partner or with the family member, or they've had an argument, and then all of a sudden you're starting to see things, and that you can see in them that things are easier, and just people's glow, and I know obviously Afterglow, it's the glow, it's a word to say quite a lot, but it can't be underestimated how much the feedback for me is. I see them turning up to class and they look lighter, they're wearing lighter colours, they look like they just have got this glow that you can't really put your finger on, and
Yeah.
they turn up again and again. Like we said before, you can do a Kundalini practice once and then you can not do it another for 6 months, and that's fine. And if that's what you want, then that's what you want. But why would you want to do something that makes you feel good and then not do it again for a
Mm.
while? It's when I first come back from Mexico, I was doing 90-minute practices to 2.5 hour practices every single day. But what I was really good at, and I'm hoping that this comes across, not on this just in this podcast, but to everyone who's ever stepped on the mat with me, I don't underestimate for a second that I'm blessed and honoured that to have the freedom and the time to do that practice for 2 hours every day, because I took the step away from work and kind of trusted that that's what I was meant to do. But I quickly learned when I come back that if I'm going to be a teacher worth my salt, and if I'm going to be a teacher that brings people the glow back to their own light, I've got to make the practice work for them. And I'm not getting anyone up at 4 a.m. for a 90-minute practice. It's just not happening. Whereas when I can do half an hour practices, sometimes we extend it to an hour, but mainly it's half an hour. It's a little bit like a bargaining. So I understand you can't give me an hour, but just give me half an hour twice a week and do it consistently. And that's the bargain that I invite them to step up and turn up. If they turn up, practice will turn up for them. But if they don't turn up and they don't come to the mat twice a week and they don't do the practice, then they don't feel it as much. But that's where, because I think of the nature of how I found Kundalini, I'm so compassionate to people that can't step on the mat because they're tired, because they can't invest in it, because they can't afford it, because they've got too much on, because they're too depressed. Because when you don't want to work on yourself, that's because you don't think you're worth the light. So when you don't step on the mat. So I think the recordings are another way as well, where the 30-minute practice are great to start the day. It's subtle enough. If I did a 90-minute practice, people would be in such a meditative state that it'd be really hard to drive a car, because you'd be in such a zen mood that you'd be, you get a natural high of Kundalini. And sometimes it's dangerous to drive when you've just done Kundalini, because it makes you that high. You need to ground back into the body a little bit. So a half an hour is enough to go, right, give you a little bit of boost. Let's move the body, let's move the breath, let's quieten the mind before the day starts. And then if you can't do it at that time, you just go and do the recordings. You can do it in the day, you can do it at the night. And I think it's just a little like tool belt. So people always come back to me and say, like, oh, I was having a really bad day today and I just logged on line and I went back to, like, I don't know, September last year, because you get access to the last 12 months practices, and I found one for the heart and I did it, and I feel a shift, feel more myself. That's what people say, which I'm like, yes, feel me spark coming back, my mind's quietened. I feel like I can feel the ego quietening. I've got a bit of hope and clarity. And just, yeah, just feeling the power of coming back drip by drip by drip, rather than this spend one day on a wellness retreat and then don't do anything on your wellness for 6 months, because it's just not fair on you to do that. Like, the little bit to of the magic, as we know.
Yeah, and I think that I would totally agree with that. It's like the people who are part of the community, who've been a part of it for quite a long time and are really good at giving feedback, and because it's a community group, isn't it? So people will put
Yeah,
things in, and it's like
yeah,
they will turn around and openly and honestly say, I have felt lower this week, and I know it because I haven't been turning up and doing my practice as regular as I could have been. Because often what you'll do is, and we can all fall into this loop and pattern, is that when everything's going great and we're feeling amazing, we kind of think that we don't need to do our practices anymore. Or we can, the ego gets a little bit loud, like, oh, you don't need to do it today. Oh, just do it
yeah,
tomorrow, you'll be fine. And then before you know it, in a couple of weeks' time, you can feel yourself, your mood lowering, your patience, not
yeah,
as strong, all of these different things. And the thing is with Kundalini, it is subtle. And it's like certain things happen and you go, oh, that was great. And you don't direct it to the Kundalini until you do it consistently and it becomes part, you embody it, and then you realize the power that this beautiful practice can have on the mind, body, and the spirit, and
yeah,
how strong your intuition can become. That inner voice becomes not a whisper, it becomes a little bit louder. Your ego, your analytical mind, softens so the intuition can be heard when
yeah,
people turn up regularly. And
yeah.
it's so underrated, isn't it? I don't know.
It's underrated, and I think I'm really honest and authentic, not just in classes, but like off the mat as well. It's hard work and
Yeah,
it's discipline, and sometimes society's great in so many ways, but it's so cruel in so many ways, because it glamorizes this instant gratification, when actually, so if I step on the mat tomorrow morning and I'm doing a practice, I'm preparing myself for in 2 weeks' time when I get some bad news. But I don't realize that in the moment, because in the moment I'm just turning up to the mat. Whereas we're so trained to be like immediate gratification and dopamine hit with seeking that dopamine hit. When you step on the mat, I like to refer to it as like getting on a horse. So every time you step on the mat, you're getting on the horse. You can go and ride that horse. You've got a bit of power. You can go and see gorgeous places, whatever. Every time you don't get on the mat, you take a step down off the horse. And every time you don't step on the mat the next day and the next day, take a step away from the horse, away from the horse, away from the horse. So eventually, if you don't practice for 2 weeks, you're in the other field, away from the proverbial horse, which is meditation of Kundalini. And then every time you step on the mat, you become closer. So if you just practice regularly, it's so much easier to get back on the horse, because you're not having that gap of time where the ego then goes, oh, I can't be bothered doing that. I just want to
yeah,
cut the corner and and the good stuff is in the stuff where you don't get the big bang. So the
yeah,
stuff when you just like subtly, because the nervous system responds really well to, oh God, she's turning up here. Oh my God, she's actually doing what she said she's going to do. Oh my God, she's not listening to the ego today. She's not listening to that snooze button. She's listening to the hope of what this practice can do, but in a very yin feminine way, not in a get out of bed, do it now, because that's too punishment. It's too yang.
yeah,
Whereas, like I like to say, how many times do you practice Kundalini? Well, how many times do you want to work on your light? Because
yeah,
for me, that's every day. Every single day, I want to work on my light, because I know I'm going to lose people. I know there might be times when I lose money. There might be times when my health challenges me. There might be times when somebody crashes into my car. There might be times when we see bad news on on the TV or the radio, and that affects us. These things are going to happen. We can't change them, but we can change our response by stepping on the mat little bit by little bit. And it's such a beautiful feeling, especially mantra, because when you get that regular practice, something like calls you back to the mat. And I love it when people come for the first time because they're like, yeah, it was good. And I'm like, and I say to them openly, I was like, I may not see you for a couple of months now. I said, but I reckon you'll come back. I don't know when it is. It might be 2 years, it might be 3 years, but there'll be something that goes, oh, I remember that feeling I had on the mat with Kundalini that I didn't really get from anything else. And that's what whether it's my mat or someone else's, doesn't matter to me. It's just that as long as it calls you back, because the more people in this world that are connected to the light, the less of the crap out there and the darkness and the challenges can bring us down, because we've all got the light in the tank.
Yeah, absolutely. So for you, Kundalini is one of is it your number one thing that you think keeps you healthy and well, helps you look at your pain from a different perspective, like especially to how you used to look at your pain, 5, 10, 15 years ago? Do you think Kundalini was one of the big players in how you kind of have reprogrammed your
Yeah.
thoughts to
Mhm.
deal with challenges in life much differently than what you did back in the day?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I think like you said before, it's hard to say like one thing is like the one thing to do. And even as a Kundalini teacher, I'm not saying like that's the one thing, because there's other things. But when you were speaking then, I suppose the three things for me that are kind of like subpar at the top is Kundalini, cold water, and connection. If you can get them three things into your life on a regular basis, you're flying.
Yeah,
Like if I look at anyone who knows me before I did Kundalini to now can see it. Like I mean, I was a victim, but I was in victim mode with my pain because I was driving myself insane, like asking people to tell me what this pain was in my body and asking them to help me. When actually, when I did Kundalini, I realized that I was actually asking help from something bigger than me, that's not a doctor, that's actually clearing the darkness and clearing the old programming that was maybe not helping me. And every time, same as you just said, every time I do practice, I can feel my pain becomes louder. I can feel my mood drops. I can feel my digestion's not as great. So it's definitely up there. But it can't work just on its own. You
yeah,
know, if you just did Kundalini and you didn't have the cold water, or you didn't have the connection, or you didn't have nutrition, which is another really
yeah,
important one, or you didn't have the groundedness where you actually get out in nature, like, oh my God, give me a waterfall any day or a park, then them things just complement it. Because what I'm
yeah,
really keen of, and I hope I do this in Afterglow, is to not make you think that like you have to do Kundalini. And
yeah,
I just say, do Kundalini and see how you feel. See how
yeah,
you feel on the days you do it, and see how I feel on the days you don't. But every single time I step on the mat, I'm like, oh yeah, I feel
yeah,
better. Like that's the feeling. It's definitely, it's something I'll practice till the day I die, without a
yeah,
shadow of a doubt. And to be honest, on the day that I do pass, I hope I'm practicing a lot, because
yeah,
I know that that will be where I believe my soul will progress, because the mantra especially is such an amazing tool to navigate the mind, because everyone's mind is just so busy, whether we've got ADHD or anything which makes our mind busier. Even if we've not, the world is overloaded with information, so
yeah. And it's
your
only going to
brain
get worse.
so it is only going to get worse unless we get better.
Yeah,
So it can get worse if we get better, then you've just got to be aware of where, you've got rings now that like, pick up your data and check
yeah,
your pulse and check your sleep. Like who knows where it's going to go past that. But if you can still stay connected to the need for your intuition beyond anything else, then the chatter about there can be, and you can kind of just let it be. But
yeah,
the power of mantra on people who come to my classes, because the main thing is what most people think nowadays, or we've always thought maybe, is I can't meditate. My mind's too busy. When actually mantra is a tool that I am yet to meet anyone who's yet done it and gone like, my mind just, yeah, it's just not for me. It didn't quiet. And maybe you don't absolutely love it. Maybe you like had a little bit of a shift. But when you chant a mantra, it's so powerful. It's almost as powerful as the conditioning of needing that dopamine hit. because actually the sound of the mantra is what's giving you like an internal sound back. So it's something that mantra is definitely what I'll do forever. And I hope to share it with other people forever as well, because that's definitely me turning my pain and my darkness into the light that hopefully can help other people come back to theirs.
And then, with because you obviously are still in pain and you've got your top 3 practices that you do every single day, or 5 days a week, let's say, because it's very difficult to say you're going to do something 7 days a week. Everyone
Yeah,
has a day off. But
yeah.
consistent, sustainable practice is what makes a difference. So does that mean then that you never really plummet back into darkness? Does that mean that you never get low moods?
No, I think it'd be really unfair of me to say yeah. Well, you know what it would be, Kerry? It'd be toxic positivity. So if
Mm,
I was to go, yes, come and do Afterglow online, and you will never have a low mood ever again. Like, I can hear myself in like an American, like, commercial, like trying to sell it to people. But what I will say with that is the darkness will never be the same as it was before Kundalini. And I do have days when my mood drops. I do have days when I have the worries of being a human, in this experience, the money worries, I'm single, am I going to meet someone? All of them things which are a part of my journey. But there is something about the shift of what mantra does to shift your darkness, like literally it shines a light on it. So you don't get rid of it, push it away. You just shine a light on it, and then the challenge and the darkness are never as dark.
mm,
But it just means now when I have a moment of darkness, it feels like I go, "Ooh, I'm in darkness." Just go back about 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, I didn't have that thought. I was just
mm,
in darkness.
yeah,
It just consumed me. It was like wading through mud. It was heavy. I was horrible to be around. I was so confused, but it won't ever get back to that, mainly because I know that I've kind of let my soul know now,
yeah,
like, okay, I'm listening,
yeah,
like I'm dedicating to the light. Whereas I
yeah,
think back then, my dedication to my light was probably like, I'll stay in again tonight and watch Netflix again for 6 hours because that's resting. Or,
yeah,
I'll go and buy myself chocolate and a bottle of wine because that's treating myself. Or I'll go and spend money on painkillers or get another prescription off the doctors for something else because that's me helping myself. When actually I wasn't feeding my light at all. It was feeding me
yeah.
darkness, 100%.
I
So
think
yeah,
when you can zoom out like that, you're like when you're talking about that third person, it's that awareness that you didn't
yeah,
have back in the day and now you've got. So when you do feel like you're having, really chronic days where the pain is overwhelming, or things just haven't been going the way we wanted them, or we wished or we hoped that something was going to turn out, and then we start questioning ourselves, and with all of these different things, being able to zoom out almost like a third person looking down on Anna, on the ego, on all of these different things, it's so powerful, isn't it, to have that third voice going, come on, let's,
essential. It's essential, and you can see other people that don't have, or they're not connected to that yet, because you can see that they're kind of in it, and that's why we need teachers. I need a teacher. You
yeah,
need a teacher. We have our own wisdom and our own knowledge of what we were good at and what we're passionate about. But you need that moment when someone kind of guides you and catches it, because once you step on the yoga mat, you're contracted then for the rest of your life to know. You don't have to do it, but you're contracted to know that the mat's always there for you. So if you
yeah,
want to, if you know, and that's where obviously as a teacher, I pride myself on being compassionate. So, people will message me regularly and be like, Anna, I just can't get back on the mat. I'm too down, I'm drained, I'm exhausted. I've just lost my mum, I've just lost my dad, the darkness is too loud. And that's my invitation as a teacher, to go back and just say, like, that is the time that you're asking for light. So if you can't go and do it with a bit of force, just sit and listen to a mantra. Just do something, even so small as to do it. And I would never kind of like forcefully say, like, fight that darkness. If you're just in a place where you can just do a little 5 minute practice,
yeah,
10 minute practice, then just do it. And then the next day do 15, and then
yeah,
build up. But definitely, I think it's definitely about having a tool belt, and knowing we're all navigating it. We're all going through light and dark. We all will for the rest of our lives. But it's knowing that you've got a practice to come back to, and noticing when you don't come back to it, why you don't come back to it.
Yeah.
And that a lot of the time that's discipline. A lot of the time that's
Yeah.
holding yourself accountable to doing it. And it's why we need good friends like we've got to go, do you want to come to this event? Do you want
Yeah.
to do my practice? Or when you message me and you're like, you do know it's your house 10 number whatever in my birth chart. And every time you do, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, that makes complete sense. It's just having that toolbox to go, right, I've done Kundalini. Is there something like with the astrology that's going on? Do I need to go move my body with Lucy? Do I need to go to a sound bath, Kath?
Yeah.
Do we need to go and do a cold water event at the water sports centre? It's
Yeah.
having that little tool box to go, not working today, I need to do this. Not
Yeah.
working today, I need to do that. And then that's when your suffering just becomes
Yeah.
lower and lower because you've got more things that work for you.
Yeah. And as you said earlier, it is a lot of it is about joining community and connecting with people who will open different pathways for you. And if you are
Yes.
listening to this podcast and you are a little bit lost or you are in a lot of pain, please get in touch because there's lots of like free events that happen
Yeah.
every single
Yeah.
month. And all
Yeah.
you've got to do is show up. All you have
Yeah.
got to
But
do
that's
is
the
show
hard bit
up.
though, isn't it?
That is the
Showing up is the
hardest
hard bit.
part. But when
It
you are
is.
craving something that if you are sitting there thinking, I don't feel well, I know that there's something better out there than this,
Yeah.
then that
Yeah.
is your calling to go. I
Yeah.
have got to find the courage. I've got to be brave. I've got to ask for help and I'm going to
Yeah.
turn up at an event. And the thing is, if you turn up to something that's recommended by you or I, we will have like kind of spoke to maybe whoever's running that event, like say it's
Yeah.
a free walk, and
100%.
just said, listen, someone's coming on their own. Will you just like
Yeah.
kind of keep a little eye on them? And you
Yeah.
have to allow yourself to be in that vulnerable position if you want to start getting better. And when you start getting better, like what you said, it might be something's not working that day. But when you've tried a lot of new things, and yet you've got your steadfast 3 that you do every day, I think that's important to have something that you do every day, but you complement with all these other experiences. And then when you are just having a couple of bad weeks, maybe the astrology is all over the shop in your birth chart, which is often the case sometimes, then you're going to go, right, you know what? I need to get out and about. I need to move my body. I need to do this.
100%.
You know what you need
You
because
know, but you're
you've
also
got
you're
the
seeing it.
awareness.
You're seeing it as well because like even now it's like I don't know life's just like an infinite onion. You're just constantly peeling back
Yeah,
the layers. The onion's getting bigger and bigger. And even now, like I think I'm in like all the groups in Liverpool that I could know about all the events. And then someone mentioned the sound bath at
yeah,
the bottom of my road, and I was like, sorry, where was that? Because
yeah,
there is so much going on there. It's happening anyway. I think anyone listening to this who's thinking I'd love to get involved in I don't know a nature walk, a sound bath, a bear chart reading, a bit of Kundalini, whatever it is, the biggest thing I say is do not be afraid to just give a message to the person running it and just feel into their energy of like, what's their intention? How they
yeah,
make you feel welcome, even just over messages, because that is the role of whoever's leading it. And everyone who's doing things like this will want people to feel welcome. Like
yeah,
that's because that's the reason why we set these things up is for people to feel together. And people who come to the Afterglow events or Flow and Glow walks as well, actually, which is like hikes in nature, most people come into them now, they come on their own. And
yeah,
I
I
think
know.
people actually prefer to come on their own because you
Yeah,
get to come on your own and speak to new people
yeah,
rather than coming with someone and then you stay in your comfort zone and
yeah,
then you just stay in the 2 of you or 3 of you rather than just coming on your own. And we're not as scary as we think. I think people think it's
yeah,
going to be like high school where it's like Mean Girls, and it's
yeah.
nobody sets a group like this up if you like that. You just don't because
No.
it's just the opposite. It's just and then who knows where that'll lead you to. Me and you are friends from meeting
Yeah.
in groups like that. So
Lots of
most of
my
my
friends have
friends
come
are
from just turning up at groups, and
yeah,
especially like spiritual friends, people who like things that I like to do
yeah,
with whatever that is. You you're probably not going to find that with maybe your sister or your brother or your mom, or you might not find that
and
in your
that's
inner circle, and that's fine.
yeah,
So find a middle circle that you can go and do that stuff with that you actually quite enjoy. So
yeah.
for you, you said that your top 3 is cold water, Kundalini, and connection with people who you enjoy spending time with, who like being out in nature, who, just want to have a bit of a laugh,
Yeah,
you know, not in town, not drinking wine, just something. Doing all that is a totally different thing. But
yeah,
just on a wellness side of things, if you want to uplift yourself and, try and look after yourself better, joining these groups
Yeah,
is a really great stepping stone, isn't it? And lots of
it is.
people have made great, great friends, haven't they? Including me and you.
Made great friends, made great connections, and fed creativity.
Yes.
Like if you look at you, me, and a few of our friends, I'm thinking of Lucy. Like literally, we started in groups where we were invited to look at what makes us creative. I'm never going to read a bird chart in my life. I'm never going to lead a movement like Lucy does. Because it's not in my blood.
Um,
But Kundalini and teaching yoga and teaching breath work and cold
yeah.
water. So whatever, the good thing is people come to class, you don't know what you're sparking up. All of a
Um,
sudden, like you might be a sound healer, you might be a masseuse. It might be that you're just a better mum or a better friend or a better daughter. But it's
yeah.
just feeding it, and you don't know what you're going to open up to. It's so magical
And we've
and
seen it,
just
haven't we, with so many people, how they've like their life has just opened up in so many beautiful ways. And
yeah,
yet it just was from taking that first step to go and join a
yeah.
community and just allow yourself to be vulnerable, try and connect with other people, and the magic, the seeds grow wherever they're
Just
meant to
work
grow.
on your light, work on
Yeah,
your light, work on your truth. Like, if someone's listening for like the first time, or they're not really used to like these spiritual conversations, shall we say, like, might be like, work on your light, what does that mean? Like that zazazu that's in front
yeah,
of in the belly, that like, I'm gonna get up today, I'm gonna clean the house, I'm gonna make sure that I'm organized for Monday, I'm gonna do some food prep, I'm gonna have that awkward conversation with my friends because there's something happened, or have that little conversation with my partner, or I'm going to apply for that job. That thing that makes you go, I'm going to take the step forward. Like that's all you're working on when you work on your light.
yeah,
You working so that's brighter, so that you can soak everything up from there is from life. Because you know, whilst I understand pain and I live with it, I'm not necessarily like suggesting that like life should be just like all this like jazz hands, like yay, you have to go constantly. But every day you just got an opportunity to do one little thing, to just go, right, I'm going to work on my light today. I'm going to connect to my breath. I'm going to listen to that podcast. I'm going to read that book. I'm going to book on that class. And that's why conversations like this are good, because everyone's got the modality. And obviously, you're brilliant at what you do. And you bring so much knowledge that loads of us couldn't do, because your wisdom is just like so amazing. And it's finding what works for you, and
yeah.
listening to what works for you.
So you're like, if you kind of were going to give your one top piece of advice, what would it be then? Like what you've
Oh,
just turned around and said was, work on your light. And in simple terms, that just means do something that feeds your soul self that day, whether it's for 5 minutes, whether you can dedicate 30 minutes to it, whatever it is, just do something that feeds that kind of goodness in you, that makes you feel lighter, brighter in really healthy ways. Is that like something that is that something you would say?
it is definitely something I'd say, but I'd probably add in like, do the things that you genuinely feel make you glow off the mat. So the practice may not make you glow. You might come on the practice, like this morning we did a practice with the arms, and everyone was like, oh, my shoulders were killing. Like if they came on, they wouldn't do the practice because they're like, no, that hurt my shoulders. If you
Yeah.
lifted the weight, you wouldn't. But it's what you do that you subtly notice felt calm. I did that. Like do something and try it consistently until you get the penny drop moment of, I'm sleeping better. I've got more
Yeah.
energy. I'm more
Yeah.
patient. Yoga's not coming onto the mat and doing a pose, or knowing your bird chart, or doing a breath of fire, or moving stuff like your heart and making your heart open. Yoga is the afterglow is when you drive in the street and someone nearly cuts you up, you don't
Yeah.
respond. When you
That was my
see, oh,
That was my
they,
biggest thing, that because when I started my journey, I just started with 10 minutes meditation every day and a 5 minute cold shower. That was kind of my go-to because I didn't have much time. So I'd just get up early, 15 minutes, I'd sit just with nothing on and just meditate, and I get a quick cold
silently.
shower. And then I just remember, I was a teacher at the time, and I just remember like 6 months down the line, and I just remember like feeling like certain things like that had happened and the way I
Yeah.
reacted was so
It,
different. And I was like, wow.
That's the key. That's the
And
key.
that's when
That's when you
I knew it was meditation and cold water, because that's the only thing I'd changed It was the only
Yeah.
thing I changed. And that's why
And
I
that's why it's got
turned
to be
around and said,
consistent.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I always think like 30 days is like a magic number. You know, you try something for 30 days straight. And like James Clear says in Atomic Habits, it's a great book to read. I recommend it to everyone. But you know, he always says, don't miss 2 days in a row. And
yeah,
start off with 30 days and then reflect back, because often we can create new habits within 30 days anyway and break old habits in 30 days.
yeah,
But
yeah, 100%.
it's the consistency, you know. See how you feel after a month, then look at it in 2 months, then you know, before you know it, you'll stop counting, and then in six
Yeah,
months you'll look back and you go, and 6 months goes over like that, and you look
yeah, it
back
does.
and you'll know that it's them little things you've been doing consistently every day, regardless of whether it's cold water, kundalini, the gym,
Mm-hmm.
nature walks,
Yeah,
whatever it is. It will be the consistent things that you've done almost daily to feed your light or your soul, or the stuff that makes you, and
better person.
feel
It
good from
makes
the
you a better
inside out, you know?
the inside, and it makes you a better person. I
Yeah,
think a lot of the wellness industry is at risk of becoming selfish and thinking like, we get sold it because you want to look good, you want to feel good. And, I will stand loud and proud and say yoga is not just about you. Yoga is about, are you ready to have the capacity and the resilience so that if someone collapses in the street when you're walking down, you've got the nervous system that can cope with that and can ring an ambulance and make sure they're okay. If one of your friends loses someone, you're going to have the capacity to deal with it and hold space for them whilst also making sure you're okay. It's not just about what you look like or what you feel in the moment. It's about knowing that you're reprogramming your mind regularly. Because one of the biggest wake ups and maybe take homes from this conversation is just even have a little think of, you do realize that we are being conditioned and programmed every single day. And once you realize that, your practice becomes your choice to not want to be programmed so much, because it's the automatic things that you start doing. So, if you consistently eat really rubbish food every day, you're going to get an afterglow of that, which is not going to be very nice, but it's still an afterglow. It's still a feeling afterwards. Whereas if you consistently feed that so your intuition can know how to be a better person and how to spread light within the community.
yeah,
Do
yeah,
volunteering or drop something off to your friend just because you want to tell them that you love them. Like, rather than it just being, I think we're in, especially in Liverpool, which is an amazing city, but we love a trend, we love a fad. And I don't see enough fads or trends of people doing yoga to make sure that we are helping each other in community, to making sure that we're spreading it, or maybe gifting a class for free for anybody who can't afford it, or maybe, I don't know, going to your next door neighbor and helping them with something, like, not necessarily talk about them things because that would be the ego, but just
yeah,
do them anyway. And that is the magic, when because you get such a sense of connection when you do your well-being practice, that all of the stuff that, when you're saying like you feel like the habit changes after 30 days, you don't have to then go back and rewrite it then, because you've changed it, and it's just
yeah.
it's just within your nature then.
Yeah. And as you say, once you have a regular well-being practice, whatever that is for you, then it naturally evolves into making you a lot more compassionate, kinder. You appreciate the very, very small things in your life, rather than, yeah, you still want the big, grandiose things, but you really
It's okay.
notice the small things, and
Yeah.
you want everyone to feel that, and you try and do what you can with what you've got to try and share that light or that loveliness with other
Yeah,
people.
you do, and you do it in a more effective way. So one really good fact to kind of like leave a bit towards the end, when you meditate, specifically when you do mantra, but when you meditate, you're stimulating the part of the brain at the front, which is the same part of the brain that if you were to take ecstasy, you would activate that part of the brain. Now, it's very well known that if someone takes ecstasy, they which obviously I'm not encouraging, but just to note that if you take it, you love life, you love everyone, you want to hug everyone, like, people want to tell people how amazing they are because they want the connection, because that part of the brain, which is stimulated in meditation, the same that it is when you're taking that high, remind you that you're not you and that person's that person. We're all just an infinite soul. We're all souls going through, and it stops this, like, did you see she did that? why would you do, I wouldn't do that to you. Why did you treat me like this? Because then that's separation. Whereas instead, if someone's horrible to you, or you can actually say like, "What's going on? Like,
Yeah.
are you okay? Because the way you treat me." Rather than having that conflict, it's more of a calm conversation,
Yeah.
and then you don't soak up and absorb, because we're all empaths walking around soaking up other people's stuff, and then getting home going, "Oh my God, why? Why do I feel so rubbish?" Whereas if you
Yeah.
can stimulate that part of your brain which recognizes that we're connected to everything, you just want people to feel good, so you keep yourself feeling good. And then you see people with the empathy rather than the beep of the horn or the double
Yeah.
fingers if somebody's cut you up in the traffic. You just see them, and you don't have to fight a response. It just doesn't happen. Because
No.
you just think, oh yeah, that's somebody having a really bad day today.
Yeah.
Hope
They're
they're
having a
okay.
bad day.
Send
Yeah.
them on the way. Yeah. Doesn't mean you put up with bad behaviour, but it
Yeah.
just means that you see things a little bit differently.
You
And
just
then you
look at
can
it from a different perspective, don't you? You kind of, you don't look at it subjectively, you kind of become a lot more objective, don't you? So you can
yeah,
zoom
and
out and be like the eagle
well,
flying
it's that,
over,
yeah.
you know?
But it's that zoom out. If I break my leg next week, which obviously I don't want to, but if I did, I'd be able to zoom out a bit and see, oh my God, I'm in pain. So what can I do? I can do a meditation. I can listen to a mantra. I can eat anti-inflammatory foods. Once you can zoom out, it's a completely different ball game than me 5 years ago. That would have been, why has it happened to me? Oh my
Yeah.
God, it's never going to recover. Never going to walk again. And that is what we're responsible for, and that's a harsh truth that a lot of people maybe don't want to hear, but you are responsible for your mindset.
Yeah.
Nobody else is. The world will try and program you, but that doesn't mean you have to. The world will try and give you bad habits, doesn't mean you have to. It's
Yeah.
your choice at the end of the day, and that's why we need teachers and modalities. Thank
Yeah.
God we've got.
And then also though, if that's like the kind of biggest thing that you get when you do practices like meditation, kundalini, mantra, that's the part. And I'm saying them practices in particular because meditation, if you're just sitting in silence, if you listen to a guided meditation, if you're listening to mantra and you're just there's some beautiful mantras out there that you can get on Spotify and just listen to it in your home. And what you're
Yeah,
doing is you are activating that part of your brain, and naturally over time you will evolve into that type of person because
yeah,
it's impossible not to. Because once that's
yeah,
activated, and then you start making better choices, your awareness
yeah.
strengthens, and it's just magic, isn't it? It really is. That
It's
is the
magic.
magic
It is.
to look
It's
after
magic.
yourself in that way every single day. And it can be so small. You just got to start, and you've got to
So
do it
and
every
that's the word
single
you
day.
said before, and it is subtle, and it just brings about this hope, this inner knowing that like everything's all okay, and it's life isn't here to be thought about or in the
Yeah.
mind. It's here to be experienced and to be felt. But if we don't have the tools to complete the cycle of an emotion, then we just get stuck in the feeling rather than I feel that, I release it, I feel that, I release it, and then you just get to be really present. I say to people all the time, if you've got like a bit of a chaotic house and there's loads going on and the kids are, up and really active and they don't want to go to bed, put a mantra on the speaker. The kids don't have to know they're listening to a mantra. But if you put rap music on or house music, what are they going to do? They're going to lift up and they're going to get all activated. Or so active, I should say. If you put a mantra on, it's like a hypnosis. It will
Yeah.
so it's meeting people where they're at. Don't
I
force
know.
anything down someone's throat. But there's so many people struggling, and obviously chronic pain is my passion because there's so many people I speak to who've got fibromyalgia, endometriosis, ME, chronic pain, fatigue. Chronic fatigue is a massive one, and these are maybe they may be things that we can manage with it. I'm not saying like poof, they're just gone, but they're not things that we should just be surrendering to and going, oh, that's just the way that I am.
Yeah.
Nothing is the way that you are. Like if you have a condition and you're understanding your body, it's actually more reason why we should be doing these things. Because if your body's fatigued or in pain, your body is asking you for something. It's
Yeah.
asking you for the power of that subconscious to clear it out. And it's asking you for the healing power of mantra, which I don't care if you're religious or not, but when you come onto the mat, mantra is working with your soul. So there's something bigger than us. So this is where we get miracle healings. And one woman had a sore shoulder for months and months. She started doing Kundalini regularly, would have to go online. Absolutely gone, just completely gone. Makes no sense to the doctors.
Yeah.
Makes no sense. I don't
Yeah.
care. Don't need it to make sense to the
It
doctors. She's out
doesn't.
of pain. That's the
Yeah.
only thing that matters.
Yeah. I know that's just fab, isn't it? So
It is.
if I asked you, what does triumph mean to you? Turning challenges into triumphs is what the name of the podcast is. So what
Yeah.
does a triumph mean to you?
Um, I'll be really honest. I suppose the main triumph for me is that I'm still here. And I don't say that lightly. But my triumph is that life feels worth living now. And it didn't. And I didn't want to carry on living before I found Kundalini because life was too painful. My body was in too much pain. I was so disconnected to all my loved ones, friends, family. And I didn't think that was possible to triumph against that challenge. So personally, that's the biggest challenge that hopefully anyone that's listening to this who's going through that can think, well, it's possible then if somebody can think that and then now feel the way that I feel. But I think the main is soft for me. It's not like it's just consistently believing in your own light,
Yeah,
consistently believing that you are worthy of a life, sorry, which feels light. Yes, there might be ebbs and flows, but a triumph is anything which keeps your hope and your faith
yeah,
and your compassion and your patience really high,
yeah,
because that is why I always say light always wins. I don't
yeah,
don't ask for less darkness because you're not going to get it, but ask for more light, and then
yeah,
the darkness just doesn't have a power anymore. So I'd
yeah,
say the darkness not having a power, the light being stronger than the darkness is
yeah,
definitely a triumph, because then you get to actually live out your life feeling your true self, rather than actually just having to feel like it's just a constant challenge, or even just a plateau. It doesn't have to
yeah,
be depths of darkness like I was in. You can just feel like life is Groundhog Day. So for me, that's just as bad, because life should be like, wow, look at that tree.
yeah,
Wow, I'm going away next week, or oh, I'm going to go and get my favourite coffee this morning. How
yeah,
grateful am I? I'm not in a war zone. I'm not, I've got food on my table. I've got a roof over my head. Like, these are the things that are really triumphs, because they don't happen to everyone. We should be taking every single one of them really, really
yeah.
gratefully.
So like appreciation, just total appreciation for all of the little wins that you can
Yes.
notice in your day. It's like appreciation appreciates, doesn't it? It grows. When
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
start noticing the little things every day, the light grows, doesn't it? And then when you're willing to ring fence some time for your own well-being every single day, then the light will grow. It's inevitable.
It will grow. And I think a really good point to add there is, oh my gosh, does the practice give you more time? And that's the thing that I personally struggle with, because I'm not a salesperson, and I really cringe every time I try to promote Afterglow, because it's not within me to like sell things. But when you do a practice, it will give you more time back, because you'll be calmer for the day, you'll be more patient, you'll get things done better, you won't procrastinate. So I think the big thing about making time for yourself is not saying I'm going to give myself half an hour, is saying I want to turn up today more efficient. So that half an hour in the morning, or 10 minutes, whatever it is that you're going to make yourself, every day is my triumph to come back and to say, I'm going to do better. And also, I suppose a really good, really important point to make is the triumph is on the days that you get up late, you're
Yeah,
shattered, you've gone to bed late, you go to work, you don't do a practice, you go back to bed, give yourself compassion. And actually just say to yourself, that's okay that you didn't do it today, but you're going to do it tomorrow. Because
yeah,
otherwise you get caught in that, oh, I've sorted it, I've done it now. I might
yeah.
as well just not do it for the rest of the week. And that's a challenge. That's not a triumph. That's just
And
giving in.
that is the ego, like totally like so loud, and he's
Yeah.
just totally, he's running the show. I always call him a him. I just do. That's what mine is like. So thank you so much for joining us today. And
Thank you for having me.
you've given us so much fabulous advice. If
Hope
people
so.
wanted to find out more about Anna and Afterglow, how do they find out about your offerings, your products? Where would they go?
The spiritual side of me wants to say, like, Kundalini will find you when you're ready, because it really, really does. I've had so many people come to class and like they're like, I don't know where I found you. You just popped up somewhere, but maybe it was a grief class and they were going through grief. Maybe
Yeah,
it was a paddleboarding class and they really had a fear of water, but they wanted to overcome it. Like, it will work its way. But if you're ready to seek something out and to actually join one of the events, Afterglow _Anna at Instagram. and then www.afterglowanna.com. My contact number's on there as well. And like I said before, I'm always more than happy to take a message or even a call from someone, just so that you can ease any of them nerves of coming to an event. I do one-to-ones as well, which can help people really start to make some shifts, but on a basis where they're a bit more comfortable. Afterglow Online is obviously all virtual, which you can do through the website as well. And hopefully see me wandering in the Sefton Park or paddling in the Albert Dock, and just
Yeah.
give me a wave and have a chat and just see where we can get you the afterglow, because that, I do genuinely teach from the heart, and I'm so grateful to have platforms like this and Instagram and just even meeting people, to make sure that when people are ready to work on their light and their spark, that they've got the modalities, be it with me or one of my friends who do different modalities, like to make sure that they've got access to it, because we all deserve it, and especially anyone in a chronic health condition. Like, I can't tell you enough how much I empathise with anyone in that scenario, because it's torture, but it doesn't need to be. It really, really doesn't.
Oh, like, you've given us some really good starting points. And yeah, I hope this podcast finds the people who need to hear it and are ready to hear it. So I'll put all your details below this video. It's on YouTube and it'll be in the membership portal. And yeah, thank you again.
Thank you.
And thank
Thank you for having me, and I'm
you.
excited to see where the membership goes as well for practical awareness, because it's so your creative passion and it's your spark, and it's
Yeah,
so good that you're sharing things like this so that people can actually learn more. We need to do one where someone interviews you,
I know.
and
Yeah.
then
Well, you can do when
yeah,
you create your own podcast and you can invite me
okay,
on.
yeah. Yeah, okay. Oh, I need to do an hour meditation in the morning to get more efficient, to make the time to do it, don't I? Because that would be good, because you've got so much to share as well and help people with.
Well, that's why you join the, practical awareness membership, and I'm
Yeah.
sharing it all in there. So enjoy Glastonbury, enjoy summer
Thanks, my love.
solstice,
Happy
and
solstice.
I will see you in person very soon.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Challenges into Triumphs. If today's story moved you, inspired you, or gave you something to think about, I would love it if you could take a moment to subscribe, leave a comment, or share this episode with someone who might need it. You can also enjoy all episodes ad-free inside the Path for App membership, and you'll also get access to monthly wellness and astrology workshops. It's just £11 a month and you can cancel anytime. So you can join us at pathforart.co.uk, and remember, you can listen to this episode on the go or watch it on screen. Until next time, keep going. Your triumph might be just around the corner.